Hello, I'm Jyoti Hosagrahar, Deputy Director of the World Heritage Center. It's my great pleasure to be with you today. I'm just going to switch to my presentation. Okay, here we go. I hope you can see my screen. And I hope that that will, okay. So I want to look at the idea of climate neutral and resilient historic urban districts in the context of the UNESCO 2011 recommendation on the historic urban landscape. The recommendation on the historic urban landscape, which we are celebrating the 10th anniversary of this year in 2021, was adopted by the General Conference of UNESCO in 2011. The recommendation calls on member states to protect urban heritage and to integrate it with sustainable urban development, with the planning and development processes within cities. So the recommendation is a soft law that is not obligatory in the way that conventions are, but it is a recommendation that advises and suggests, and is applied by member states on a voluntary basis. The idea of it is that it takes a landscape approach to heritage conservation, in that it looks at heritage as in its context, in its historical, social, political, environmental, and natural context, and looks at conserving it as part of this context. So it really sees historic centers, historic urban areas as having as being the outcome of the interactions and the interrelationship between the built heritage, the natural environment, its geographical setting, the historical and political circumstances, and of the cultural practices, beliefs, knowledge of the local communities. Such an approach really looks at the idea of a historic ensemble or a center as being part of a larger setting. And this setting is one that is, you might say, consisting of a number of layers of built heritage, tangible, intangible heritage that has values that are local and universal, built and natural. So there's a number of different values that are really a composite. So such an approach is really a far cry and a real departure from the monument-centric approach that really looks at monuments as physical objects, to be our art objects, to be preserved in a pristine way and displayed. It also looks at the idea of change very differently, because it sees change as an inherent part of cities, but really focuses a lot on managing change. What aspects of a historic urban area need to be protected, preserved, and what aspects, what dimensions can and do change, because these are living places where communities live, work, thrive, and therefore must engage with. An important aspect of the historic urban landscape approach at the World Heritage Center and in relation to the World Heritage Convention is that the World Heritage Committee has really seized this approach as fundamental for urban heritage sites. And out of the 1,121 World Heritage Sites, more than 300 are historic cities. So, say, almost a third of the World Heritage Sites are historic cities. And this is not even counting those that are urban heritage sites. If I was to count urban heritage sites, there's probably more than 2,700, just looking at the cultural properties, not even looking at cultural landscapes, which often contain a number of cities within them. We can see in the report, the first global report in 2016 that was published by UNESCO, that gathered the information about cities, and it was a global survey across 9 different study areas, that urban heritage was under pressure, under threat. There was a constant, was under threat from a number of different forces, pressures of urbanization being one of the most significant, but equally from the pressures of climate change, from climate-related natural hazards and events that cause disasters, and from conflict. So the idea of being able to make, of how culture and cultural heritage really help to make historic centers more resilient, more inclusive, and more diverse became a very essential effort that came out of this. If you look at historic cities today, one of the things that we see is that a very large number of these cities are located along coasts. Out of the 300, more than 300 World Heritage cities, probably about a third of them really are located along coasts or along along major rivers. So they are either along ocean and coasts along seas and oceans, or along rivers. And these are for historical reasons, as transportation routes and so on. But that has a huge impact in the context of climate change, where they are more prone not only to the effects of the rising sea level, but also from stormwater surges, flooding for various reasons, and other climate-related disasters. So the impact of climate change is very significant in a very large number of historic cities. And so the threat, I think perhaps one of the most well-known out of these is of course the case of Venice, where the sea level change is very significant. But in addition to this, there is a number of other pressures, as I said, from new transportation routes to construction which is inadequately conceived or inappropriately planned. There's housing poverty, new developments that are that crop up and that are permitted to come about, all of which threaten the outstanding universal value of World Heritage cities. So the management of these urban heritage attributes is a very significant effort. And so in January of 2020, a meeting in Fukuoka led to the Fukuoka outcomes, which really look at the implementation of the whole approach in historic cities and World Heritage cities. Coming back again to the issue of heritage and climate change, UNESCO and the World Heritage Center's actions, the UNESCO Task Force on Climate Change was set up to coordinate the organization's work on climate change. In 2007, a policy document was adopted on the impacts of climate change on World Heritage properties. Of course, 2007 is a long time ago, and so this policy document is now currently being updated and will be considered and examined during the next World Heritage Committee meeting in July of this year. A UNESCO reflection group on culture and climate change has also been set up, and the UNESCO ICOMOS IPCC co-sponsored international expert meeting on cultural heritage and climate change is foreseen for later this year. There's also the follow-up committee of the UNESCO UNFCCC Greece that was requested by the UN Secretary General of the UN Climate Change Summit. And there is the flexible mechanism that was established by Greece and presented to the 210th session of the UNESCO Executive Board. And a number of decisions that have been considered during the G20 high-level webinars that had certain inputs. And as you can see here, climate change and World Heritage has led to the creation of a number of different guidance and tools that have been developed at the World Heritage Center to address this. Moreover, a recent collaboration has been launched between the World Heritage Center and the Group on Earth Observation and the Geo-Greek Office to look at the impact of climate change on World Heritage cities. And this is through the establishment of the Urban Heritage Climate Observatory, which really looks at bringing Earth observation tools to looking at climate impacts on World Heritage cities. I want to just touch on a few of the recent activities at the World Heritage Center related to urban areas that would be relevant, I think, to this discussion. We've already talked about the World Heritage Cities program and the whole recommendation. I want to draw your attention to Urban Notebooks, which is the monthly e-newsletter on urban heritage conservation and management, and includes innovative practices in support of integrating heritage conservation with sustainable urban development. It goes out every month in English, French, and Spanish. So if you're not already receiving this, please do go on to the World Heritage Center website and subscribe to it under the World Heritage Cities web pages. You can find the subscription button. The World Heritage City Lab is a series of innovative global and collaborative workshops to support the co-creation of strategies and solutions to the challenges of managing urban heritage. And World Heritage City Dialogues is a virtual platform for site managers and site authorities, local authorities to meet and exchange. I mentioned about when talking about urban notebooks that we include there some innovative practices and strategies. And this has in fact been a significant effort where we have now set up a platform called World Heritage Canopy, which really curates a number of different local initiatives, local actions, practical strategies and solutions for addressing some dimension of sustainable development along with heritage conservation. So really looking at bringing heritage conservation efforts close to and aligned with sustainable development outcomes. We've looked at this across 6 key dimensions in terms of where we see cultural heritage contributing to sustainable development, which is under certain thematic areas such as environment and resilience, prosperity and livelihood, knowledge and skills, inclusion and participation, peace and security, and gender equality. We have we sent out a request asking for case studies, and we received probably more than 90 of these from around the world. We have so far about 22 cases that we have up online, and we're working on another 70 of them. So hopefully we should have more of them up very soon. I just want to leave you with the thematic indicators for culture in the 2030 agenda, the Culture 2030 indicators that include also indicators for sustainable management of heritage and for climate change. And lastly, I want to leave you with an invitation to join us for the celebration of the 10th anniversary of the Historic Urban Landscape Recommendation, to join us in this call for action to really promote the implementation of whole. It highlights the successes among cities that have adopted the whole approach and look to the future by calling for new cities and stakeholders to join a developing community of practice. So there's 3 actions to promote whole, from raising awareness to engaging the local communities and stakeholders, to developing and taking local actions, and to really look at building the capacities of cities to champion and mainstream the approaches to urban planning and processes. So I want to stop there, and we will be very happy to answer any questions by email. Please feel free to get in touch with us. Thank you very much. Goodbye.